What up? What up? How's everybody doing out there? Hey, we got a special guest tonight. And if you don't know Brendan Darby, you should. Former 49er, former Rhein Fire football player of the World Football League. How you doing, Brendan?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you for being on. We appreciate it.
So I've known Brendan for, he was a little guy. Back we were in church together.
He was never little. Come on, let's be honest here, right?
Yeah. And we've got some great stories from life and just growing up at church together. And then I actually got lucky. I get to coach him in high school. Oh, nice. And I'm going to start right off. I'm actually going to put you right under the fire on this one because when we came over, I was over at San Rafael, and the coach came over over to Redwood where he's at from San Rafael, and he had me come over. Brendan was coming up. They had just canceled varsity football at the high school because they had lost how many years in a row? They had no.
I don't know. I mean, I think the last year they had varsity before they canceled it. The first game of the season they lost to Novato 85-0. That was a low light. Right. I think at one point, I don't know why they did this. This is so mean, but at one point USA Today ranked them as the worst team in America.
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like that's pretty mean for a national newspaper to do for high schools. But,
right.
You know,
so Jimmy comes in and cancels varsity football. And there was two seniors that actually came out, and he's like, and it was crazy. Nobody would ever thought that anybody would cancel varsity football. But what he wanted to do was teach these kids how to win again. And so by the time they did it the first year, the next year I came over from San Rafael and helped coach. And Brendan, in the summer, we started a workout program. And Brandon couldn't come because he was at horsey camp.
That's right.
He wanted to go ride horses in the summer instead of come working out for football.
Well, that's not totally right.
Well, that was the joke.
That was the joke.
Yes.
It was a summer camp that had horses.
That's right.
I'm not a huge horse guy, so I didn't do a whole lot of riding. But, you know, it was tough, and it was kind of funny. And there's probably some lessons to be learned from that between kind of, you know, the things that you want to do versus the things that you know are going to open more doors for you. You know, I really wanted to go because those are people I'd grown up with. I had been seeing those kids every summer since I was 8, and it was this important thing to me. And it was actually a really difficult decision to stop going after that year. I wouldn't give you guys credit for teasing that much about it. I would have arrived at that conclusion on my own, but yeah, I didn't hear the end of the horsey camp jokes for a long time.
They were pretty good. But what was amazing about Brendan was, I mean, he is a kid that I think you grew maybe like 2 feet overnight because you just sprouted. It was pretty amazing to see that as a high schooler. And when he did that, it was kind of tall and gangly. And Brendan had some knee issues, right?
Yep.
In the past. So he was also working on the fact that he kind of was a little worried about his knees going into football and, you know,
I got you.
That kind of a thing. So, but what was amazing was how he turned the corner. He didn't need to be there in the summer. You know, we joke about it as coaches. We want the commitment and all that stuff. He didn't. He needed to go be a kid and enjoy his friends and all that stuff. But when he turned it on in the football and as a player, not only did he play offense, he played defense. And some of the amazing things, what we always look for as a coach is people that make plays.
Right.
People that aren't just out there to block or out there to do a quick tackle or something like that. Somebody who actually makes a play that changes the game. And I think that's one of the things that Brendan was really good about, although he didn't realize it at the time. That was a big part of that. He actually did learn how to be a playmaker.
Nice.
And what's also amazing that happened in that program is the other kids that he played with really started to become playmakers, which is what made them so good.
Nice.
And the fact that a lot of his teammates went on to play Division I football or Division I track, world-class runners. And these kids were amazing in the fact that that nucleus of kids was that incredible, and they really became something. And I think they learned a lot about life. It wasn't just about football. Would you admit you learned a lot about life out there on the field?
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I mean, you know, I think, to rewind it back, I mean, you know, Chrissy made the joke about I was never little. And, you know, I mean, I think I was always one of maybe the bigger kids in my class. But in 8th grade, I grew 6 inches.
Yeah, that's right.
So coming in 8th grade, I was 5'10", which is tall for an 8th grader.
Right.
But by the end, I was 6'4", right, which is just massive for an 8th grader.
Right.
But yeah, I was really skinny. I think I was maybe 190 pounds. I don't think I'd broken 2 bills.
Wow. Well, I saw something that when you went to San Diego State, you were 6'7", 6'8". Excuse me if I'm wrong on the numbers, but you only weighed 295.
So I was 6'6". I actually grew an inch my first year at San Diego State, but I reported to camp at 268.
Wow.
So I definitely still had a lot of growing to do.
God.
And I thought I was huge, right? Because I had played my senior season at about 255. But then, of course, I get there, and all the other freshmen were 300 pounds. So I realized, hey, there's levels of this stuff.
And you walked on there, right?
Yeah, I had a weird arrangement, and I don't think I've ever really heard of this before. I mean, maybe they do this now, but basically the O-line coach really wanted me. He was kind of going to the mat for me, but what he was up against with the rest of the staff in trying to sell me on being worth a scholarship was there was 3 other linemen in my class, 2 of which played in Orange County. And, we would be playing another team, a Pac-10 team. And these guys were like, I know him. I played against him. He was on my team, so it's just like these football factories. Right. And then another guy had played at St. Mary's of Stockton, which is like a powerhouse.
Oh yeah, we know that.
And they all had D1 bodies, and so I think it was just like the bird in the hand being worth 2 in the bush. I think at that point I was still very much a speculative asset. It's a 255-pound offensive tackle. I mean, it's just, I think you worry, can this guy put the weight on? I think that's what the coaches guessed. And then actually, Robert, it's an interesting point you brought up, because the coach told me later, he said, I was in the office late one night and I put on your tape going, do I need to go to the mat for this guy or not? And he said, he's watching my tape and he's watching me knock people down. And he's going, okay, this is good. I like this. I just want to see him do something else. And he said, then, a couple plays later, I line up on a kickoff. I got outside and contain. I screwed up. And the runner gets outside of me, but I chased him down and tackled him from behind. And he goes like, this is a guy who makes plays, And so I think that's kind of the point you were talking about, Robert. And also just learning about, there is a lot of life involved in that stuff, because it's effort. It's getting you thrown into positions where you think, where you're going to be uncomfortable. It's self-sacrifice. It's, working within a team, understanding what you bring to the table, what your limitations are, staying in your lane in terms of what's going to be best for the goal you're working towards. Like, all those things really do, they come into play, man. They come into play later in life. It's really it's a cool thing. We definitely learned a lot. I mean, I'm incredibly proud of the fact that, we were this laughingstock that had to cut our varsity team, and then we won a title my senior year. That was awesome. Amazing. That was so cool.
Yeah. Really, I think the group bought in. Yep. And that doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes you're in a program that has been doing it for so many years, you have to buy in. Yep. But you guys grew up not having to buy in. Nobody bought in to anything. And the fact that you guys changed the whole trajectory of Redwood High School football for a very long time. Yeah. And the fact that you guys really were the ones that made that change. It took learning how to win.
Yeah. I mean, after I got cut so my class was, we won our title in fall of 98, and we were a class of 99. And when I got cut by the Ravens and came back and was just still kind of working out for teams and grinding to get that next contract, Jim Nelson, who unfortunately has passed away, great guy, Marin County coaching legend. He was the head coach at Redwood, and he said, hey, I know you're kind of flying in and out to go to workouts and things like that, but come out, be with the kids. They know who you are. I think it would be a huge value add. And I hadn't even thought about it in the context of what we were talking about, Rob, like changing their trajectory. But it was like these kids knew who we were. Yeah. And there was a feeling around the program that like, this is the team that did it. This is the team that like turned it all around. And so like, I actually kind of had no idea. And at one point I brought out my friend Justin, who was he just came by and he knew Coach Nelson really well. And he came by just to say hello and see what was going on. And all of a sudden, like they're pulling him out into drills. Like show us how you would have done this. You know, it was kind of funny. And he was a 6 foot tall, 200-pound offensive lineman. He wasn't a guy who played at a different level or anything like that, but he was there just kind of going, all right, guys, like, here's what you need to think about. Here's, how you need to think about reading that defense. And the guys were just soaking it up. So that was a really cool moment of realizing, like, wow, these kids, like, they know who we are. We're like semi-famous as much as one can be in Marin County high school football.
That works.
And then
because just for those who may not be familiar with MCAL football who are watching this, I mean, we didn't do it because there was 20,000 people at the game, right?
No.
Again, those guys that I played football with who were in Orange County, and there was even some Texas guys, right, who played with me at San Diego State, and they've got thousands and thousands of people at the games, and it's an event, and it was like our parents in the band, and then a couple buddies. We didn't care. That's not why we did it. We did it because we like playing football. It was fun.
Yeah, very small schools, very small leagues. I mean, we're up here in Sacramento now. Mm-hmm. There's 2,000 kids in a school. Mm-hmm. You were at Redwood, and I think you were probably one of the bigger schools, like 1,300.
We were the biggest school in Marin, and we were 1,200. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's tiny for up here. It is. And the football programs that are up here are insane, and packed stadiums and huge stadiums, and that's up here. And you're talking about people that were from Orange County or Texas. They got $1 million stadiums down there. So he's talking about small schools, and there's a lot of people that have moved on from Marin County schools. Yeah. I mean, we have Goff right now that's playing in the NFL, who's the quarterback of Detroit Lions right now. Yep, small school Marin Catholic. But a lot of
I didn't realize he went to Marin Catholic.
He went to Marin Catholic. Okay, yeah. So there's a lot of really cool things. Is that there's a lot of kids from my age are now coaching, and their kids are playing and coming up in the MCAL schools. But let's move Brendan on to college here, because San Diego State.
Can I just say one thing, Rob, that I think is kind of cool that that hopefully I'll just take credit for it, and someone can correct me later. But my class, it was myself, Mark Naranja was on the team. He got a full ride to Nevada. Yep. And then Catholic, there was Travis LeBoy, who went to Utah State and then Hawaii, and then, I think 10, 12 years in the NFL. And then Alan Amundsen, who went to Oregon, was a really good running back.
49er.
And then ended up on the 49ers, which was kind of cool. And so,
even one of your teammates, let's talk about that.
Like, went on to Florida State. What's that?
Gordon Reed went on to
Gordy. Yeah, Gordy's like, hey guys, I'm walking off Florida State. We're like, good luck. And then, there it was.
That was amazing. Florida State. He went on in there, played the defensive back there.
Seminoles, baby.
And then you had one, your cornerback, who was the world-class runner at Arizona State, trying to make the Olympics.
Yeah, Luis Melo.
Luis
Brazilian.
Melo.
Yeah, he was a dual citizen, and so it was like an Olympic qualifier for Brazil in the 100.
Yeah,
guy could fly. So and no disrespect to Gordy, I mean, the guy was an amazing player, and actually looking back on it, I didn't know anything about football strategy when I was in high school, and looking back on it when I know what's going on, I'm like, holy crap, Gordy was the glue of that defense, because the way our defense was structured, you needed to have a strong safety that could support the run and also go deep. And you saw it later, even like after my class graduated, I was still close to the program because my buddies were still playing, and they didn't have anyone who was very good at strong safety, and it didn't work. So, so no disrespect to Gordy, but it was kind of like Florida State was Florida State, right? And we're like, well, good luck, dude. And he managed to do it. He played a lot. He played a lot on special teams for them. So, and now, I think what we're seeing is there's an O lineman from Redwood who's at Cal. You had Goff. There was a guy at Arizona State. It's going to drive me. Was it Manny Fernandez? Was that his name? He was a pretty good quarterback. Made a lot of plays.
Yeah.
He's the San Marin guy.
Yep.
So I think you're starting to see that there's people getting noticed in Marin, and that was not the case before.
No.
What I was always told was, well, you're not going to get recruited. It's just not. It's not going to happen. And one thing, I'll segue to college after this. When I got to college, the tight ends coach at San Diego State said, oh yeah, I know Marin County. So when I was recruiting the North Bay for Oregon State, when he was the coach there, he said I would fly into SFO. I would go see who the good players were at SI, St. Ignatius, Sacred Heart, and Reardon.
Yep.
Then I would get on the 101, and I wouldn't stop till I hit Sonoma County.
Yep.
And that's how Marin was recruited. That was just the conventional wisdom. So
yeah, we were just completely skipped over.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talk about. Why I wanted it. There's so much more to talk about with Brendan, but your group kind of started the change of what was happening there. Mm-hmm. And so it's fun that you get to look back now and go, you're right. Some of these guys went on. He had a fullback that was 285 pounds who became the world's strongest man.
Oh, wow.
So you're talking about some kids that really came together under an amazing leadership. Jim Surf really did something amazing at Redwood, but the kids still have to buy in. And the fact that nucleus of kids came together and really they not only did they change Redwood, but they changed the trajectory of Marin County football for a very long time and going on to this day, it goes back to all you guys. And it's another reason why I was so interested in having a conversation, because that's actually something I wanted to bring up. You guys changed Marin County pretty big. There's other kids in other schools at that time, but that was a big part of a big change of Marin County, where there was some vision and some sights of stuff that happened in that time. Jason Crystal brought colleges around.
Yep.
That was a big part.
Jason Crystal.
Darby. They saw some of these other kids.
Yeah, Jason Crystal had, I don't know if he still has them, but, at one point he had every big powerlifting record for, I think it was under 18 or whatever. I mean, the guy was just a total beast.
Yeah, you can watch his YouTubes too.
Is he on YouTube now?
He's
got some
YouTube of him lifting big old, look like lead boulders or something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he was a beast. And he played fullback. And I think some of the colleges that reached out said, have you thought about playing offensive line? And he said, no. So, I think that's why he ended up having a good career. I will say, I talked to people, like when I came back, and people, how's it going? I would say, like, if Crystal had just said, I'm cool with playing guard, that guy would be, I'd be playing against him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So San Diego State, you obviously go in, you're kind of walking in. There was a big turning point for you at San Diego State. I know that you were battling for a position.
Yep.
Because obviously, as a coach and a friend and knowing you for a long time, I was watching pretty intently about what was happening. And you were going up for a tackle position against a guy who I believe had some national honors the year before.
Yeah.
And I believe you ended up shifting him over to guard.
Yeah.
And then he went on to the Green Bay Packers.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about that battle.
Yeah. I just realized I never finished what I was talking about with San Diego State. So
sorry about that. Yeah.
When the coach, no, it's okay. When the coach saw me chase that guy down on the kickoff, he said, I got to bring this guy in. He's making plays. And what he did was actually pulled a scholarship from the next year. So I had, like, in writing that I was going to get a scholarship in the fall of 2000, because I graduated spring of 99, came in fall of 99. So basically just had to pay for San Diego State for 1 year. And then I already had my scholarship in hand, which was kind of cool. So yeah, it was, a few things happened. So I got to San Diego State and went through camp and struggled. And I mean, that's such a huge, I remember my first practice just being like, how the hell am I ever going to get there? Like, that first practice is so humbling. And all these things that you don't think about, all these things that high school players don't think about, footwork. I mean, I still remember my very first practice. We tried to run, I wasn't on the field, but we tried to run an inside zone, and our right guard was a guy who got all conference honors, a guy named Andrew Klein, got all conference honors, 7th round draft pick of the St. Louis Rams. And he was a great player. We run an inside zone behind him. It gets blown up, tackled for no loss. And the coach in film after practice says, let me show you what happened. This is why attention to detail is important. Andrew Klein, what kind of step do you take on inside zone? And he goes, 3-inch flat step, right? What kind of step is this? He goes, it's a 6-inch flat step. Why are you doing a 6-inch flat step? Do you do a 6-inch flat step on inside zone? No. And he goes, let me show you what happens. And he fast forwards, and sure enough, he does a larger step than he needs to. His base gets big on a very downhill play. The D tackle gets into his pads, pushes him back. On inside zone, the running back's reading the butt of the guard. So all of a sudden, the guard's in his lap. He's stopped. He's flat-footed, and the defense just swarms him. Yeah. But you talk about, like, the levels to this thing and the levels of details. He took a 6-inch step, and he should have taken a 3-inch step, right? So I'm trying to learn all that stuff in camp, and I'm having a hard time. And then, I think a couple times the coach was like, dude, I don't think you're going to make it. Like, what's your backup plan here? And then as the season went on, the best thing for me was a guy named Kabir Baja Biamila. Fun fact, his little brother is the host of American Ninja Warrior, Akbar. Akbar's a great guy. Still stay in touch with him. Great Aztec, great guy. But Kabir was the fun fact about Kabir is he is not Reggie White is not the all-time Packers sacks leader. It's Kabir Baja Biamila. He was just a very long, rangy, thin pass rusher who had this incredible flexibility. So he was super quick. He had these long arms he'd get on you, and he was so flexible, he would like limbo underneath your arm while still going full speed. I mean, some of the stuff he did, it was just like, I don't know how he did it. But I had to go against that guy every day. I went against that guy in practice every single day. And, I got better. It's probably more accurate to say I got my butt kicked less and less. But it was just like, on scout team, it's like I'm taking 15, 20, 30, 35 live reps against this guy every single day. And I improved a lot. And I think I improved up to, a basic level of competence, right?
Right.
Went through spring conditioning, just really took it seriously and tried to lift as hard as I could, bulked up a bit. I think I went into my first spring at about 285. So it was like, probably a little light for a tackle, but, could get by. And what ended up happening was everybody got hurt that spring. It was just so many injuries. And so there's 15 spring practices. And there was like, by the end of spring practice, there was like 6 of us who had dressed for every single one. And what that meant was there's also 3 big scrimmages every spring. And I played every snap of all 3 of those scrimmages against the first team defense. And by that time, I'd gotten bigger, gotten stronger, worked on my technique, and just mental game, just gotten a lot more confident and played pretty well in the spring. And so all of a sudden, going into my second camp, I redshirted that year, of course. Going into my second year of camp, my first year of actually playing, I was right in the mix. And there was Mike Houghton, who was like a highly touted player. And then there was a guy named Chester Pitts, who played many years in the NFL. He was the really interesting story. There was like a Super Bowl commercial about him. He was literally working the Ralph's grocery store down on the end of Montezuma Boulevard. And Kyle Turley, who's like a famous San Diego State alum, was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, come out and try out for the team. Guy had never played football. He went to like a math and science academy in LA, and then played in the NFL for like 10 years. It was a really cool story. So I had this really stacked lineup, but just, I think it's a good example of like a good learning lesson of you take the opportunities that come your way. And those guys got hurt, so I got a lot of reps. And then coming to camp, I was in the mix, and I think they realized that, Houghton could play guard and center. So, they had the confidence to move him to guard and move me to third tackle because we did strong and weak. So they had me playing both sides.
Yeah.
And I was basically third tackle. And so I was in a really good position coming the first year. And my goal coming to San Diego State was just improve, learn, get better. Junior year is when I'll really have my chance to break into the starting lineup and shine. Yeah. And all these things happened, and I just prepared and mentally got my game right and took advantage of those opportunities so that camp I'm like a second string offensive lineman and in a position to play. The game plan going into my first game that year is you're going to play. I'm gonna put you in.
I want to ask a question. I've been kind of itching. You go into your first game. Now, for you and for all our young viewers out there, when you went from high school to college, how much faster of a game was it for you? And second part of that is, how long did it take for you to mentally slow that game down for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think I'd go back to, that first day of camp, just going like, this is like, I don't even recognize this game. It's so fast. I do think that probably halfway through the season of taking those reps against a guy like Kabir every day, it started to be like, okay, I can actually do this. I can at least move my feet in the right way to get in front of him. He's going to put some crazy move on me, and I might not get him, but I know that if I watch that film, my feet were in the right place. I got out of my stance. I had my assignment. My hands were in the right place. So those things just kind of come up over time. And yeah, like the mental aspect is it's really just getting those live reps. I mean, there's no replacement for it. And so again, that's where I go back and say, getting to play every single snap of those 3 spring scrimmages, so invaluable, just critical. So yeah, by the time, I mean, I was a little nervous going into that first game, but I was ready for what they were going to throw at me for sure. So yeah, then the next big event is in the third quarter of that game. We're playing Arizona State, and the guy I'm backing up gets rolled up on, tears his ACL, and it was like, all right, you're in. and then,
let's go.
Yeah, and then I was just in. I stayed in.
Yeah, never relinquished.
No.
And you know what's interesting? This is a kid that had some knee injuries, had to grow, went on, and injuries of other players got him in position. So he was always ready and prepared. He had a battle against the guy he just talked about.
Right.
That ended up being the Packers' top sack leader of history, not even Reggie White.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
And that's
KGB, right?
Well, that's on something that you, like you said, you give a lot of homage to him, because he trained you to get to that level. And then obviously now you're out there starting. So now you owned it, right? Then the accolades start to come. When did you start to get, or did people start talking to you about the next level?
Yeah, I mean, I think even the offensive line coach brings it up. Usually it's a threat in terms of like, well, hey, this is the next level here. You're going to have to. There's a lot of that, and you see it, right? Your teammates are getting picked in the draft, so you're going, okay, well, I got a video of me putting him on his back, so I think I got a shot, and guys you're playing against. I mean, I'm trying to think. There was a I forgot his name. Well, there was my freshman year. We played BYU that had a stacked defense, multiple draft picks on that defense, and I played a really good game. I graded out at, I think, 87%. And, I was like, okay, well, all those guys are going to be the NFL. And then the same thing next year. They had like a whole new crew of guys who all went to the NFL. There was like Chris Hoke, who played many years for the Steelers. He had a big beard. They had I'm drawing a blank on the names now, but they had a lot of really good players. And so, I thought, okay, well, I played pretty well against these guys. I think I can kind of handle it. I think I didn't want to be the cocky guy who was walking around saying I'm going to league, but it was in the back of my mind, and I was trying to be pragmatic about it. Like, okay, well, if these guys can do it, I think I can. But I also kind of knew that there's a lot of guys who have one good year and kind of fizzle out. So I also didn't want that to be me either.
Right. So the thing is, he ends up with the Ravens. Right, draft happens. You didn't get drafted. You were undrafted free agent. Tell us the experience. Is that like the rude awakening again? Like coming in as a freshman, as college, the next level to the NFL? Is it a similar feel?
Yes and no. I think I was actually surprised at, it is actually a thinner line between college and NFL than NFL to college, or high school to college, in my opinion. Because like I said, it was like my first college practice, I was here and I'm like, everyone else is up here. And how this looks like Mount Everest right here. Yeah. And it's just like, kind of the interesting thing about the NFL is like, everyone's just a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, a little bit stronger. And it goes back to the old cliche, like game of inches, right? But that's kind of what it is, and there wasn't anybody that I felt like, it's impossible for me to block this guy or something like that. Like, and so that was actually a cool experience, right? Is like my Al Bundy story is we're running a half line drill, and Ray Lewis got a little bit too aggressive, and I got under his pads and got under him and got him up on the one leg hop. And, hey man, quit it! And so, okay, if that was a real drill, I would have flat back Ray Lewis. So you have those moments of like, okay, like I belong here. I can play. Yeah. But, it is so tough from the numbers side where you have 53, you dress 48, and the tough thing is, I played tackle my whole career, and they just don't have a lot of room for guys who can't play 4, if not 5 positions on the line. And so, I felt like I belonged there, but I wasn't so good as to be indispensable. And that's really the key, right? You have to be so good, they just can't get rid of you.
Yeah. So you ended up in Europe.
Yep.
That's a whole different experience, right? Like you spent 2 years over there?
No, just 1 season.
And you were tagged to the 49ers when you went over there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's actually kind of an interesting thing. We'll first talk about playing in Europe, and then we'll talk about how the fact that being tagged by the 49ers allowed you to go through an entire camp with the 49ers.
Yeah. So the way the timeline was, right after the season, I signed a futures contract with the Niners.
Yep.
And then they, my agent was in touch with me the whole time and basically said, they're going to sign you to a futures contract and they're going to allocate you to NFL Europe. And so for those of you who remember NFL Europe, you would usually see like an NFL logo patch on the jersey. And so that meant you had been allocated by that team. The team got credit for extra camp bodies for allocating people. And then you were protected all through camp. So what you got out of it was you weren't going to get cut early. What they got out of it was extra camp bodies. So, so I went over there and, it was a crazy experience. It was like kind of like being in college again, because it's a bunch of guys living in a hotel. So it's just like a nicer dorm. It was interesting because there was a big disparity in talent there, because there were a lot of guys who I played with who had, multi-year NFL careers after that. And the reason they were there is because, they had done something stupid and the coaches said, you got to prove to us that you can go over there and behave yourself. Then there were other guys who were kind of just on the bubble like me. And then you had, there was a mandatory non-American player quota. And so some of these guys, and then some of those guys could play, and some of those guys were just like, they were a liability on the field.
Oh, no. Hello? We got it stuck here.
This really big disparity. Oh, sorry.
No, we're good. You got you back. Yep.
Where'd you guys lose me?
Right after we said
disparity.
The disparity.
In the play.
Okay. But I was done. There was a huge disparity.
Yeah. Then there were some liabilities.
So some guys could really play, and then some guys were just like, they're not going to see the field.
They were looking to kick the ball instead of hit people, right?
Yeah. There were some good players, though. There was like a guy who had played tight end, and he'd been on the Chargers practice squad for a couple years. So, he was like a legit player. He could play. There was other guys who had played at like, a Japanese college. And again, no disrespect to those guys, but it's just not the same level as, when you've got a surplus of guys who've played in major conference, American college football. It's just not, there's no comparison. So,
so did you grow up as a 49er fan?
I did, yeah. So that was cool.
That was a big deal to be a part of that. What was the experience walking in as a 49er for the first time?
Yeah,
Have you been a fan?
Yeah, so it was cool. So the background on this is like the season tickets in my family go back to Kezar Stadium. Like my family's like true blue 49ers. We got priced out by the last stadium.
Right.
Here's a fun story about it is we had such good seats that when I was growing up, we were always sitting next to the players' families. So it was like, sometimes you'd like see someone, you're like, okay, that looks like, Bill Romanowski, but 30 years older. That's like totally his dad.
Yeah.
So that was fun. I remember sitting behind Ken Norton Sr. one time. He had this like gold boxing glove chain that was like the biggest like piece I've ever seen. So they had these amazing seats, right? And we had gone from Kezar to Candlestick, obviously well before I was born, without much fuss. When they built Levi Stadium, they called us and said, okay, you owe us $80,000 per seat for the right to buy your season tickets. And so that was my parents said, okay, I think it's time to.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
So we had these like great tickets. And in fact, when I was playing, I remember turning around and I could see my parents because the seats were 8 rows back, right around the 50-yard line. And then they were using my family's tickets. Then I had a group of friends that were using my comp tickets that were like 25 rows behind them.
Yeah.
So my parents had better seats than the comp tickets. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it was cool, though. I had been through it, right? I had been through camp with the Ravens. I knew how the business worked, and I wish I could find this photo. So I was living with my parents, right? Because I didn't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah.
And they FedEx the contract to my parents' house, and it comes in the mail. My dad's so excited. He's like, I'm gonna go get the camera. He gets like a nice pen. He has this like gold pen. Goes gets a pen. I want to get photos of you, you know. And I had this 49ers like sweatshirt that they'd given to me when I worked out for him. And he's like, go put that on, and we're gonna sign it and take all these photos. And I don't know where the photo is, but it's this incredible thing, because if you see it, I'm kind of looking like I'm signing, and I'm kind of looking like, because as I'm signing, I'm realizing like the likelihood of this contract resulting in a 10-year career where I call a press conference to announce my retirement is like 0, right? I'm getting taken off the field on a stretcher, or I'm getting cut. Those are like the 2 outcomes.
Right.
And maybe I don't get cut for 3-4 years. Maybe I figure out a way to hang out 5-6 years, but I was getting cut. Like I knew that was my way out. I didn't have any notions that I was going to, you know, suddenly become an all-pro overnight. So I kind of had a little more of a reality check going into that. Now that said, I mean, I showed up, you know, they got the 5 trophies in a glass case in the lobby, and you're just like, holy shit, this is, sorry, I don't know if I can swear. You know, you're like, this is awesome. And, you know, even some of the guys that had been there a while, you know, like Brian Young, you know, and I'm thinking like, Brian Young was my guy when I was in like 7th grade, and here I am playing with him. You know, that was kind of just a cool thing. So you definitely have those moments, and then you kind of temper it with the, you know, the cold reality that's coming. You're watching your buddies around you, you know, you're getting dressed, you know, oh, where's so-and-so? Oh, he's not here anymore. You know, they're getting disappeared, you know, before practice and stuff like that. Because the way they do it, it's cold, man. They'll come pull guys out of meetings. They'll, you know, after practice, they'll come tap guys in the weight room, go see coach, bring your playbook. So it's cold-blooded, man. And so you watch that happen, and you're kind of like, all right, well, I'm not starting, so I certainly don't have a spot locked up. You know, I'm in the mix because I'm competing with these guys who are probably going to end up on the practice squad, but you know, there's no guarantees. So, you know, you just have to, I don't know, I guess live in the moment and take the good as it comes, and understand what the long-term realities can be. I will say I have a very specific memory of my first game on the Niners, and we were lined up in the tunnel under the big inflatable helmet that, you know, I've seen a million times. And all of a sudden I just start elbowing people, getting to the front, because I'm thinking like, all right, I don't know how long this is going to last, but I waited my whole life to do this. Right. Elbow me all the way to the front. And go, what are you doing, man? You know, and I just elbowed my way all the way to the front, and fireworks went off and smoke went, and I just sprinted out of there because I was like, I'm going to be the first one out of this thing.
Yes.
I wanted to at least have that moment.
That's
I like it. It's nice.
Oh my God, that's so good. Now, let me jump, because there's something that happened that season that I want to bring up. Kind of sad. You were there, happened in front of you. A homage to Thomas Herron, who did pass away in the locker room there in front of you. And there is an award for the 49ers to this day. He was somebody that you were battling with to make the team, so you knew him pretty well. But what was that kind of experience? Did that change the mood of the team, or what was that like?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's hard to come back from that. I mean, I think you pride yourself as an athlete on, like, you know, nothing phases you, right?
Right.
But you're not ready for that, right? You know, at that age, you're just not ready for that. And so I actually knew him because I got drafted by a different NFL Europe team first. And I was on that team with him, and then the team in Cologne had some injuries, and so I got sent over there during training camp while we were still in Florida before we went over to Germany.
Right.
And so I knew him really well already. And so when I came back, got to see him, and you know, we were catching up like old friends. And yeah, he was just a great guy. So Thomas Herron was just a hilarious dude, lit up the room, like one of those kind of guys. Everybody loved him, just total character. A lot of times on a football team, what you see is like offense and defense get sort of cliquish. And part of it is like the coaches kind of foster that too, where they want you to be sort of, adversaries during training camp so that you'll be extra motivated to beat the crap out of each other, I guess.
Yeah.
And he was one guy who was like, he'd be in the weight room chopping it up with the D linemen and the linebackers and saying what's up. And just one of those guys everybody liked. So, yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I was literally just right next to him and he keeled over and, I thought like he'd cramped up or something. And and then all of a sudden it was kind of like, oh, there's something else wrong here. So, yeah, I mean, that's a heavy thing to deal with when you're, it was like 20, 22, 23. Watching a friend die in front of you is like, whoa.
Yeah.
This is this is not what I thought was going to happen, and kind of gives you that dose of reality. And it's tough. I don't know how Coach Nolan thought the best way to deal with it. I think we got the next day off. I don't think we did anything, but then I think he said, we need to get back to work, which is an understandable perspective for him. I do remember my roommate was a guy named Harvey Dahl. He's a great guy. Played several years in the NFL. Was a great guard, real kind of scrappy. Was a master of the dark arts of offensive line. But I remember he was like, man, like I just can't do this. Like we were in the middle of a drill or something. He's like, I just can't do this. I was like, I can't either. Like my head was just elsewhere because how do you deal with that, man? That's tough.
Yeah.
It was sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I did. And hold on, give me a second. I'll think about it.
Well, I wanted to go right into something also happened. I think it was in 2017.
Oh, I would just say, sorry, the only thing I'd follow up is, so they still give that award, the Thomas Harrigan Award, and I believe there's still a scholarship in his name. So at least, that's a good way to kind of honor him, going on.
Absolutely. And that's why I wanted to bring it up. There's a great, just the fact that they continue to honor him.
That's cool.
On a guy who was just trying to make the team.
Yeah.
And that's a great part of it.
Not a guy that an NFL fan would know. He was on Dallas's practice squad the year before, offensive lineman. Your average NFL fan's not going to know him. And so it's good for him to at least, be in the minds of NFL fans going forward. I think that's cool.
I appreciate that the organization does that.
Yeah, definitely.
Quick question. I actually remembered, I didn't brain cramp that long. Did you get an opportunity to meet Bob Malamo, who was one of the clubhouse guys at Candlestick?
So did he work for the Niners or was he just a clubhouse guy at Candlestick?
I want to say he actually worked for the Niners, but I'm not sure. I just know he was at Candlestick doing that job for the 49ers for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if you had an opportunity because he was a great guy. When I was a kid, he was a soccer coach and got to play against him and knew his son, played with his son. So I was just curious to know if you had the opportunity to meet him or not, or if you remembered.
I don't believe so, but I'll have to look him up and see if I see his face, if I recognize his face.
Yeah. He's about that tall. See Yoda? He's about that tall.
Okay.
Great guy. Great guy.
Awesome.
So I have something happened. Something happened in 2017, which I thought just was a big part of how much San Diego State appreciated you. You became an honor warrior.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Look at the smile on that face. And the reason why that's a big deal is not everybody gets to be an honor warrior. And it's somebody who's done something really amazing with the San Diego State football program that they honor warrior. You take the team out on the field, right?
Yep.
It's people that come back.
Oh, wow.
So explain that, how you got the call, what that experience was, because I think that of all the things that you've talked about, what an honor to come back and be able to be an honor warrior. That's big.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was just awesome. It was so cool. I got to give a shout out to J.R. Tolver, who was a receiver on those teams I played on. Really good player. He got drafted by the Dolphins and played for the Cowboys as well. Set a few records, I think, until very recently, which is saying something given how much they pass in college now. He and another receiver named Kasim Osgood had the record for most catches and yards by a duo.
Right.
So JR was a great player. We still stay in touch. He was at my wedding, great guy. But I think he had also been advocating, because he's still involved with the athletic team. He had been advocating, and then there's still a few people who are around in the athletic org from when I was there, athletic department. And so they contacted me and asked me if I wanted to do it, and I said, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's just really cool. You have like a nice dinner the night before, and then on game day, you go meet the team out by the bus, and there's actually like a little walkway. They park the bus a little bit far away from the tunnel entrance. And so you escort the team from the bus. There's a wooden shield with Aztec, kind of an Aztec design on it, and you carry it and you lead them. And you got to go get the crowd fired up and stuff. So that was fun. Got to lead them. Then you also lead the team out on the field. So they actually call your name. You walk out to the middle. Monty Montezuma has a flaming spear. He hands it to you. He blows the conch shell, and then you stick the spear in the ground. When you do that, the team runs out.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. They announce your name and everything, and like a little bio about yourself. And so
he went.
Yeah, it's just a really cool experience. My wife has an awesome video because
that's great. Yeah.
She was on the sideline, so she's filming me. Then the team starts running, and then they're getting closer and closer and closer. And you hear her go, ah! They're like about to run her over. Looks like a stampede.
I love it.
So this guy has basically went from the first game at the 49ers, decided on his own, he was going to lead the 49ers out.
Yeah.
Like, why not? And then he gets to be the honor warrior. And I just, you've lived life, and you continue to do so. It's really amazing. You have this wonderful family. You got a 3-year-old and 5-year-old. You have them to come and like see things. You remember when you were a little kid and you got to see things for the first time and be shared by your parents who are wonderful. That just and that you get to experience that now yourself and share those things. But you've also had a lot of experiences that as they get older, get to go, my dad did this and my dad did that. And I'm just really proud of you. You've been a friend for pretty much almost as long as I can remember. And I was always proud of you, everything you did, but I'm just as proud of you today as the man that you've become, that you always did in anything you did on the field. So that's more important to me, is who you've become as a man. And I really appreciate you, and I'm proud of you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I still remember seeing the photos of you celebrating the MCAL title, hanging up in church and going like, I want that. Like, that's what
right.
I want.
Holding up that banner.
Yep.
Was there, nobody can ever take that from you. And, I got to take my kids to a reunion at the high school, and my kids were wearing my old jerseys. And I have a picture where one of my kids is on my shoulders, and she's got my jersey on. And I love that picture to this day. I'm walking to the stadium with my daughter on my shoulder, and it's so great. And it's cool. Like my school where I went to Sarah Fell, one of the old coaches took over as varsity coach, and he's trying to bring the old dogs back. So he tries to bring them back every year, and we all kind of got together. And that brought a lot back to bring the old dogs back together. And you talk about that, where you still connect with some of the guys you played college with. And I'm sure you talk to a lot of the boys that you played high school football with and stuff. Shoot, Bryce Anderson's doing some amazing stuff with his weight loss gutless, which we're going to interview as well.
Oh yeah, he's great. He's a great interview. So that'll be a good episode for you guys.
Nice.
Yeah, we made sure we had our 20-year reunion in 2019, and we did a football reunion the night before. We made sure we wanted to have just a football reunion.
What an experience.
So we got, I think there was only 1 or 2 guys who were seniors on that team who couldn't make it. So we got almost the whole senior class from that squad together. So it was really special, including Daniel Silva came up from Brazil to go to that. So it was
really that's fantastic.
Yeah.
What are you doing now? What do you got going on now?
Yeah, so we just moved to Orinda, California, out in the East Bay.
Okay.
We were living in San Francisco up until last year. And, I think just when COVID hit, we thought, okay, maybe a good time to get out. We had enough space out there with the kids. We had a place with a yard, but I think we realized, hey, we should probably, do the suburbs thing. It's about time.
Yeah.
And so just moved out here last year. I got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old doing software sales, which is fun. I think there's probably, I don't know how much more time we have, but I think there's a lot of subject matter to be gleaned out of, the competitive things you learn as an athlete translate pretty well to sales,
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I like sales. It's fun. The feeling of like closing a big deal is as close, I think, as I get anymore to, feeling like I won a big game or made a great play or something.
Absolutely.
Sure. Any ambition to coach?
I think I would like to. I'm not sure if I want to have the burden of calling plays or anything like that. I think what I really enjoy doing is just working one-on-one and doing technique work. Because really, when I think about it, now this is funny to say about a guy who's 6'7", 310, 320 by the time I got to the NFL, but all the coaches were like, hey man, you're really skinny. You're really light in the ass. That's a common like coach term.
Yeah.
And I was, I'm standing next to Jonathan Ogden. That guy dwarfs me, right? And so for me, I was never a guy, once I got, college and pro, I was never a guy who could just, slam dudes because I was so much bigger, stronger. I had to rely a lot more on quickness and technique.
Yeah.
And so for me, what I like doing is really showing how you can do those, there's very small details to a lot of these things. Again, game of inches. Something as simple as your basic offensive line coach in high school says, hit them in the numbers. And what I say is pick a spot that's about that big between their numbers and aim for it. Little things like that will give you those edges over time. And so if I got the opportunity to do something like that, I'd love to do it. Not sure how I can balance that with my career and paying the bills, but that would be fun. I'd love to eventually. I think that doing that's really fun.
That works. And for those of you out there that don't know who Jonathan Ogden is, he was like 7'12", 380, and fast.
He was
and just hit people.
Beef.
Again, I'm 6'7", and I was probably 310, 315. And I remember my very first NFL game was the Ravens, and walking out on that field for warmups, and I'm walking next to Jonathan Ogden, and I'm just like, damn, because I don't do that very often. I'm not doing this.
You're huge.
And I was doing that.
I
think he was, no exaggeration, he was 6'9", 360. And yeah, the dude could move. He had some of the best quickness and technique of any offensive lineman. He made it in the Hall of Fame first ballot, no problem. So one of the all-time greats at that position, and a great guy to learn from. I would say for the kids watching, that was a guy who could have walked away from football that day after practice and would have been in the Hall of Fame 5 years later.
Yeah.
He would come in over to my locker and say, let's go out there early. And we would do, so here's another thing. When I talk to high school kids, what kind of stuff did you learn? What kind of cool stuff do you guys do in the NFL? Let me tell you what we did in the NFL. We got out there 20 minutes before practice, and we did this. We practice the first step.
Oh,
that's right.
Foot goes, your helmet goes, right? Hat and hand placement. Where are you going? That's what we did, right?
We're not doing things.
It's those little things.
The little things makes the biggest difference. And we're not just talking about football.
No.
He coaches softball. He teaches softball.
And that
you're
step,
speaking to a lot of
if
kids.
If it's a false step, and you understand this, if you have that first step as a false step, you're behind. You're done.
You've already lost, or you're losing. If you're really good, you might be able to make it up. But most of the time, you've started by losing. You've stumbled out of the blocks. And so it's all those things, and you need to be able to do that without thinking about it, because guess what? You're in a stance. You've got to play in your head. There's people screaming. You're tired. You're sweaty. The guy in front of you is telling you about all the ungodly acts he's going to do to you. And then the quarterback calls the play, and the defensive line stems. Okay.
Yeah.
If you have to thoughtfully process all of that information, you are dead. You need to be on autopilot with what your feet, what your hands, where your helmet's going to be. All those things. Yeah. So that's why you have to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally see it.
This is a brilliant interview, huh?
It is. Yeah. Talking to you has been great, because being the sports guy that I am and the sports guy that Rob is, there's a lot of key little points here that you've brought up that I've picked up on. Just talking through things. And for young athletes, when we get a chance for them to see this, they'll pick up the do's, the don'ts, the what actually has to be done in the future. Yeah. And a lot of young ball players, football players, baseball, softball, so on and so forth, they don't understand what it takes, how it takes. And when you sat there and said, yeah, you know what I did? I did first steps. That's it. I had to get that first step. I was like, thank you so much for saying that, because that's just these young kids don't truly understand what that means now or what it's about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry for going long, but when I started my current job, one of the senior guys came over to me and he said, "Hey, I heard you play ball." And I said, "Yeah, can I show you my son? I think he's pretty good." And he played at some high school in Atlanta. And I'm like, "Oh God, is this gonna be bad? I'm gonna have to be like, oh yeah, he's really good." But the first play, he's like, he plays tight end. So I'm like, okay, great. We're gonna watch this guy running routes, not get the ball thrown to him. First play, it's like a strong side stretch. He freaking takes this tackle to this end to the sideline and pancakes him. And the kid and his buddy, the running back, runs for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah, right.
And I go, his first 2 steps. And another, like the head of sales heard that. And he started cracking up. And I think he maybe thought that I was like trying to insult him by being like, well, the first 2 steps were good. And implying the rest wasn't. But I was like, no. He nailed his first 2 steps. Everything he did after that was kind of like, it doesn't matter. Like he took 2 great first steps. His hat and hand placement were good. And the rest kind of took care of itself, right? After that, you just run your feet. So it actually became this like mantra in the sales, like work on your first 2 steps. It's like the same thing, right? Like do these basic fundamental things right. And that has cascading effects to the rest of the sales cycle.
Yeah,
so
true.
All those like lessons you take with you.
I hear a sales book coming out of you soon.
Oh yeah.
All right. Can't wait to read
it.
First 2 steps.
First 2 steps.
I like
it. I love you, brother. I just keep going. I hope to catch up with you again, see those kids as they grow up, and just keep being you, man. You rock, and love you. It's been a long time, and thank you for coming on my show.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. It was fun.
Absolutely. Definitely had a great time. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one, buddy. Talk to you.
Take it easy. What up?